I didn't even realize like the instability that I had inside me. I didn't realize the trauma I had inside me. On the outside, I spoke well to people. I appeared to be okay, but I also formed a lot of habits to escape myself. So a lot of drinking. I always had like three jobs at one time. I ended up having to go in and have major surgery. And I'd always been super healthy. I'd always been fit. I'd been a lifelong athlete. I came out of that surgery and like my health was destroyed. My health was completely gone and I didn't recognize my body anymore. The thing that really guided me was I became so sick that my kids were always seeing me in bed. And
Hmm.
that was the memory I had of my mom was always sick in bed. My kids are not going to take care of me and they're not going to see me sick. And that was the strength that I held on to.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to a Better Way with Kirsten podcast. And today I have a wonderful guest here with me, Caitlin Proctor. And Caitlin is going to tell us about something called Cognomovement. And in a minute, she's going to tell us more about it, how it works, what it is. But I understand that this is it's like exercise. It's maybe a protocol, but you can correct me later, that helps us to break some chronic patterns and habits. Is that true?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. So why don't you tell us first a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what do you do?
Yeah. So I am a mom and I do energy. I started out doing energy work before I came across Cogno movement. And I'll kind of get into that shift of why I love the Cogno movement so much. But a little history on myself. So people know where I'm coming from because my background is actually I was a hairstylist and then I was a graphic designer. So I was always this like artsy creative that was like, let's paint the world. And I really didn't ever foresee myself in any type of healing space whatsoever. And it's funny how life just takes us down a path because if you would have asked me 20 years ago, would I be doing this? I would have been like, what? No. But every step in life kind of got me here. So, a brief history of when I was growing up, as I had a very sick mom that I took care of, all of us took care of. We grew up watching my mom suffer and just slowly die. And it was a very horrific, emotionally challenging experience to go through. And then my dad ended up getting sick. And so then there was all these things with my dad that came across when I was in high school. He ended up being in a coma for a year. And it I didn't even realize like the instability that I had inside me. I didn't realize the trauma I had inside me. There was also some sexual abuse that took place as a kid. So it was like these things created this inner turmoil that I didn't really know how to handle and I didn't know how to find my way out of. On the outside, I spoke well to people. I appeared to be okay, but I also formed a lot of habits to escape myself. So a lot of drinking. I always had like three jobs at one time, this constantly keeping busy because I couldn't stand to be with myself. So sitting with myself alone at home, I would go sit at a bar and talk to a stranger before I would like sit at my house and be with myself.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of like the big piece I want people to recognize. After I got married to my husband, he had some mental health problems that I knew about. Didn't know what to do about it, but he was upfront and honest. And then we had our firstborn son ended up being a vaccine injury, and he went from being the healthiest, most beautiful baby boy to completely losing his immune system at 2 years old after receiving his first vaccine. And this turned my world upside down because all of these things that I had tried to run from kind of just caught up with me at once. And I always say I was ready to light the world on fire because I thought, like, how does this never escape me? Like, how is my son so sick? Like, why can I not escape these like horrific health challenges with the people that I love? And so it set me on this mission to figure out how do I get my son well. And that was the only thing that mattered. They told me he would be bubble boy for life. He wouldn't have an immune system. He wouldn't live a normal life. And they had all these medical interventions they wanted to do that didn't sit right with me. And it was just kind of one of those like over my dead body. Like I'm not doing this again. Like we're figuring it out and I will find the way. A lady came into my salon and she was talking about how she had this energy work session done. And I was like, what is that? And I had no idea what it was, but I was like, can I get that lady's number from you?
Mm-hmm.
And she gave me her number. I showed up at her house. I'm sitting across from her, and she's like, what do you want to work on today? And I was like, I don't even know what you do. I just know I'm supposed to be here.
Mm-hmm.
And she ended up doing trauma release for me. And it was the most profound session I had had because it was the first time I had worked with someone. I had tried therapy many, many times, and it had always been re-traumatizing for me to try to talk about the experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was the first time I didn't have to talk about it. And I cried and cried and cried, but I released. And I left, and I remember afterwards, my husband actually sent her an email and was like, whatever you did for my wife, I don't even know what this voodoo is, but thank you because it helped her so much. I kept going back to her to continue with this trauma release to create more room so I could experience life, so I could feel and be with myself without needing to escape myself. And then she ended up starting to teach me how to do energy work. I felt very called, like, I think I'm supposed to learn this. So this actually happened right before my son got sick, as I had started working with her and releasing. And then when my son got sick, I went to her and I said, can I use this to help my son? And that's when she started teaching me. And so I did energy work just really for myself and for my family, for my son, my kids, for the first 7 years. And then after that is when I finally, once again, the universe came in and all like the work I had was kind of taken away from me. Everything was falling apart. And I was like, what is happening? Why, my jobs kept falling through. I had this like great income that fell through. And it was the universe kind of taking things away, going like, this is not your direction. Like, that's not where you're supposed to be. And so that's when I moved into energy work. And what was beautiful is my son got well, I got well mentally, and then we were able to get my husband well. He got off all his medications, he got out of his depression, his anxiety, also exercise, it was eating, it was all of these things. And then I would say like the last little bit that really happened for us is I used to have breast implants. And after we had my last child, I ended up having to go in and have major surgery. And I'd always been super healthy. I'd always been fit. I'd been a lifelong athlete. And I came out of that surgery and like my health was destroyed. My health was completely gone and I didn't recognize my body anymore. I could barely stand. It was like I had to go on this journey of like, how do I regain my health? And one of the things that I had to do was I had to face that it was my breast implants that were poisoning my body. And so I had to then go through that process of explanting, but also of facing my insecurities.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a huge journey that once again, it was like that kind of brought me into nervous system work again because this confidence that I felt like I had that I was like, yes, like I'm so confident in who I am. It was like a house of cards because once you took away those implants and I went back to being flat chested, it's like, oh, these are the demons in the basement that I have to face. And so that kind of started a whole other healing journey that really was actually quite beautiful because who we are when we actually walk through that discomfort rather than mask it,
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Wow, such an amazing story and so many things happening and so many things you had to get through and but it was always like the universe was like nudging you like, hey, this is not the direction we're gonna have to go this way. And so you had no other choice than just listen eventually, right?
Yes. Oh, definitely. Because I always say, like, if it would have been what my mind was choosing, I mean, I wouldn't have probably gotten into the health space. I would still have like my big perky boobs. Like, I mean,
Mhm.
it was, I would be in such a different place than I am now. And so, one of my passions with people is it's like these things that we think are punishing us and are torturing us, how do we alchemize them and recognize that these can actually be our greatest strengths and they can be for us? Because as much as that afraid version of me that was so sick was afraid of who I would be, if I didn't like my body, if I couldn't if I didn't have these implants, who would I be?
Mhm.
What would that mean for myself? But the thing that really guided me was I became so sick that my kids were always seeing me in bed. And
Mhm.
that was the memory I had of my mom was always sick in bed. And I thought, I don't care if I have inverted breasts. My kids are not going to take care of me and they're not going to see me sick. And that was the strength that I held on to go through with it. And then, like I said, it ended up being a blessing because my entire outlook changed on life. And now it's like I see the body in this completely different way as this beautiful vehicle that we get to utilize to carry us through life. And we get so obsessed with these little things of like, that doesn't look quite right. And if I could just change this little thing. And it's like we're missing the whole picture of like,
Mhm.
what is it allowing me to do while I'm here? That's what it's for.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh. And so the breast implants were literally so toxic for you that they caused you just all the illness that you had, all the symptoms you had. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
like there's more and more awareness now around this. People are talking about it more and getting them removed, which is obviously a good thing.
Yes. I always love it. I for a while I was helping women go through the explant process. I
Mhm.
don't do that anymore, but in the time I was doing it, I helped 34 women explant.
Nice.
And
Nice.
yes, and so that was really, really amazing to watch women take that journey of reclaiming their health and going, okay, like it's not about how I look as much as it is about my actual health
Mhm.
and really having to get to that place of like, what are my real priorities? What truly matters? And then like walking that path and standing firm in that.
Yeah, because there's so many things, so many ways we can cover up our aging, so many, injections and things. And this is not what we're going to talk about necessarily today, but it does make me think, at least me personally, like, do we know what we're putting into our bodies? What is being injected? What is being like it? Like, if it wasn't there at first, maybe it's not supposed to be there. Everybody's own personal choice, but this is my opinion on it. Like, I would not mess around with that stuff.
Yes, and the thing that I finally came to the conclusion was that as we age, it's like this rite of passage. So
Hmm.
when we're younger, we don't have wisdom, we don't have experience, we're trying to attract a mate. And because we don't have this like wisdom of who am I, like knowing our worth intrinsically, we
Mhm.
rely on our beauty in order to captivate.
Mhm.
That's where we believe our power is when we're young, is in our beauty. As we get older, I believe it is this rite of passage to start losing that beauty. Or I shouldn't say we lose it, it just changes.
Mhm.
Because one of my favorite features on women as they age are the crow's feet around their eyes.
Mhm.
I love it. I think it's so beautiful. And it's like you see a person through those lines and the magic of their life. And so I adore it. But as our beauty shifts and changes, there's this rite of passage of going like, I'm letting go of that needing to captivate others through my beauty, of finding my worth in my beauty. And I'm settling in to the wisdom of my life experience and in that knowing of my worth intrinsically for who I am and knowing that that's what shines through. And that is like, that's where my value is. It was never in the exterior. That was the illusion of youth. And I think when we can walk that path together as women, there's so much power in that. And I think there is a little bit of derailing that process when we try to inject the wrinkles away because
Mhm.
it's going like, like I can't be seen like this yet.
Mhm.
It's like I'm still grasping to captivate with youth. And there's no judgment, but I do love to tell women, I love to remind them, like, that's not where your power lies. That's not where your power ever truly was.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, so true. And obviously, it is hard to see these changes. Like I started seeing them too, in my late 30s. And I was like, yeah, this is changing, that is changing. So obviously, it is different from what you're used to. Um, but at the same time, I would never want to be the person who's like hiding their age. Even when you think about like older cultures, um, there's wisdom in aging. And then the
Yes.
most respected people in the society were the older people. So these are the people we learn from. They have the life experience. It's so funny when my grandma was still alive, she would always say she kind of like a little sassy towards the last years of her life, and she would always say, "I've been on this earth for so many years. I can say what I mean, and I can tell you just that." I'm like, yeah, that's kind of cool. She was right about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And she was
Anyway,
like, I'm okay with myself.
yeah.
I am
Hi.
comfortable enough with myself to speak my mind.
Yeah, yeah. And I literally don't care if you don't like it, don't like it, whatever. I'm saying it anyway. Because yeah,
Yes.
there
And I
is wisdom
do.
in aging. Yeah.
There is. And I don't, and I go through that. Sometimes I look in the mirror and I'm like, who's that? Like,
Hmm.
whoa, things are changing quickly.
Yeah.
And that's okay too. It doesn't
Mhm.
mean we have to walk this path and always go like, oh, I love
Hmm.
these like
Hmm.
jowls, or I love, it's like,
Hmm.
but it's okay. I think that's why it is this like rite of passage because we are learning to move into that place of intrinsic worth and wisdom over where we were. And that is a journey that we have to walk down. And just because it's uncomfortable
Hmm.
doesn't mean it's not for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's talk about cognitive movement then too. So what is it exactly and how did you get involved with this?
Yes, you got to keep me on track because I'll go down so many, so many paths. So, Cognomovement is a way of working with the nervous system that actually allows us to edit the nervous system. And why this is so huge is because most of us are running programs that we've been running for years. And even if most of us aren't even aware of the program, but even if we are, we don't know how to change it. And so we try to use willpower in order to get a different response, but our willpower can only last for so long. And the example I like to give is if you've ever seen a child that's so mad, they're like, I'm gonna hold my breath to like punish you. And it's like they can hold their breath for so long, that willpower, right? Like, I'm holding my breath, I'm going to show you. But after a while, the nervous system kicks in and is like, get out of the way, we're going to breathe. Like,
Mhm.
enough messing around, we're going to breathe.
Mhm.
That's the power of the nervous system. It's designed to keep us alive. Most of the patterns we have developed during times of shock and times when we didn't know how to handle a situation. And in those times, the nervous system took in as much information as it could, and it developed a behavior to try to keep that person safe. So when that behavior gets stuck in a loop, or when the nervous system has like gets stuck in this pattern of this is what I need to do for this person to be okay, it doesn't matter how much willpower you have. The nervous system at some point is going to say, get out of the way. You've had enough fun. We're
Mhm.
going to go back to doing this. And that's when the person is so frustrated and their self-worth keeps going down because they go, why can't I do this? Why can't I stick with this? Why do I keep failing? And it's not because of you, it is because the nervous system has a reason for this program. So what we do is we utilize a ball and we utilize different movements and eye positions. It can be done sitting or standing. You can be in a wheelchair. You can be fully active. Like there is workarounds for every person. But eye positions especially access traumas in the body. And it also, we can access places where neurology's been shut down. So basically, you're not utilizing the neurology anymore. And we can also access where these loops or patterns are located. Now, before, the only ways that I knew how to help people through this was we could release trauma through energy work, and that helped a lot. But one of the issues was if there was still a pattern for it in the nervous system, that's where people were having this issue. And the only way I knew how to get out of these patterns was meditation. It's very difficult for a lot of people to learn to meditate. And it's very, and I mean, I've been on my meditation journey for like 14 years. And so it was like I found this Cogno movement and I went, oh my gosh, I can literally help people. I can shave off years of time spent trying to meditate
Mhm.
with these simple movements. And really that's always what I'm looking for is what can I do to help people get results and get them faster, get them easier, and to be able to empower themselves. And that was brings me to the next thing is when I work with people, I am teaching them how to do this for themselves as well, not because I don't want to see them, but because I want everyone to know how to take care of themselves so they don't feel powerless without me. So it's like, yes, come see me, we'll work together, but also here's what you can do for you. I'm here to help you and guide you whenever you need to go deeper, but every day you can do this for yourself and you will experience the changes every time you do it.
Mhm. That's fascinating. So, can you tell us, yeah, you gave us like a really good background of how the nervous system works, and the patterns we develop are usually born as a trauma response essentially, and then we just keep repeating these loops. So, what happens in the body and physiology when you work with our eyes, with the ball, with the different body movements? What's actually going on inside us?
So what we're doing is we're changing the communication between the brain and the nervous system. I'm thinking of a specific person where they had their ears flushed out. And when they had their ears flushed out, it was very traumatic and it was very painful. So now, anytime someone gets in their field, anywhere around their ears, or anyone is in this field, the nervous system goes into fight or flight and has a response because it immediately believes that it's going to be attacked.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's a communication that's happening that begins in the amygdala, which is like our fire alarm, saying like danger, danger, danger. So what happens is we use these eye positions to locate where the trauma is. And once we find the trauma, I will have the person breathe through these specific spots. I'll have them do certain movements. And what happens is that communication is what shifts. It's the signal. So it's not about saying, okay, well, we're just going to avoid ever having someone in the field around your ear, which is a lot of times what we do. We start avoiding the
Hmm.
triggers,
Yeah.
so, and our world gets smaller and smaller. Instead, we're finding, okay, here's the trigger, here's where the nervous system is holding this program. And then we go through these movements, these breath techniques, and the nervous system releases it. So now the signal between the brain and the nervous system is what changed. Now the brain is no longer saying, hey, this area, if someone's in here, this means danger, or this means certain death. Now the brain is like, no big deal. There's a hand next to my ear. So that's what we're shifting is the signal, the communication that's saying, hey, this is unsafe, this is danger. I need to do this behavior in order to keep safe.
Mhm.
Now it just becomes neutral.
Mm. Yes, such a good example that you gave in the ears and stuff, because I see that a lot too, because I know a lot of people with chronic pain and work with them, and this chronic pain is neuroplastic. So there's no physical injury, no physical problem, such as my own story too, right? And then people start avoiding. And one of my big goals is to help them get started with a little bit of exercise so that you can kind of create this new pattern that also helps and then takes that fear away. But like you said, you can't keep avoiding and hoping things getting better. So, even start a little bit of movement. Um, and yeah, somebody might be very used to certain body position causing a lot of pain, right? So that it's like conditioned into you, right? And I understand that
Yes.
this is like what you are helping with, right? So how long
Yeah.
does it take for somebody to erase, delete these patterns and replace them with better ones?
Yeah, great question. So it's going to be different for each person. Everyone's story is unique. Everyone's body is unique. It's amazing because sometimes I want to say, "Oh, for this really big issue, we're going to need, quite a few sessions. Like we should start with 4 sessions." But right when I was getting ready to even say that, I thought of someone I worked with who was in a mass shooting, and we cleared her in 1 session. I was like, let's do a follow-up session just to make sure. And we did, but she was good. So
Mhm.
it depends on the person. We're all unique. Sometimes it's going to be a few sessions for things. Sometimes I'm going to work, with people for a few months. Other times it's just a session. It really just depends on the individual.
Hmm. What are some of the biggest changes you've seen, like the most impressive ones that you think of, and you're like, okay, this is unbelievable that how much this person improved?
Okay. So for one, the person I just spoke of who was in the mass shooting, that was huge because they
Mhm.
were having a really hard time going out in public and being
Mhm.
out. And so for that to clear so quickly and just be fine, was truly amazing. When I first started working with Cognomovement, I was just trying it out with clients, asking like, can we incorporate this in with your session and let's see
Mhm.
what happens? And two of the biggest things that I like to share because it was right away, I was like, okay, I got to get certified in this. And that was I had a client tell me that they hadn't needed their allergy medication since they had done a session. And I had another client message me that they hadn't needed their asthma inhaler or
Mhm.
medication since they had done the session. And we weren't working on those things. Like we
Mhm.
weren't targeting these health issues, but they are a nervous system response. Now I even work with people who experience neuropathy.
Mhm.
And sometimes by the end of the first, so actually, it surprised me quite a few times by the end of the first session, they're like, I can feel my feet. It doesn't, I'm not numb anymore, or the pain has gone away. When people experience neuropathy, it's considered a miracle if they can even experience a 20% improvement. I look at it as like there's no limits to what we can do. If we look at The nervous system is controlling everything. And with this work, we're just changing the signal. We're showing the nervous system how, and the brain, how to communicate differently and how to send a different signal. And so it's like the sky's the limit.
It sounds really fascinating. I mean, you can literally help somebody heal from such a severe condition.
Yeah.
Do you have your own personal experience? Did you get something healed or any of your family members through this method specifically?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So I do this work with all of my family. And what's cool is my family runs me through sessions now too, because
Mm.
we've all done this work so much together. They take me through sessions. One thing that was really huge is I'm an endurance runner. And every time I was running, I would show up to a race and I felt like I had sand in my arms and legs. I kept getting repeat injuries and I really couldn't figure out what was going on, but I would always describe, like, I feel like I'm running through quicksand. I feel like I'm running through quicksand. And so I actually had a session with a practitioner. So even myself, I go to a practitioner when I want to go through deep things. That I always advocate for that because I think sometimes people think like, oh, I must just do everything
Mhm.
myself. And, you know, it's hard to see your own blind spots. And
Yeah.
so I do work with a practitioner. So for this, I worked with a practitioner. And what was so interesting is my body was in shock. And every time I would run, this response of shock would happen. And that's why I had like the sandbag arms, the sandbag legs, and it felt like I was fighting just to run. You would think, oh, what was this huge trauma, Caitlin, you went through? That running was so dangerous. Well, it wasn't a big trauma. It was when I was 4 years old. There was a foot race in the neighborhood. I was the only girl, and I was the youngest by 4 years. And in this foot race, it was everyone was getting timed running around the block. And if you didn't make a certain time, you were kicked out of the group. I was already the only girl. I was already the youngest. I already had to fight for my place to prove myself. And so when I took off on this race and got timed, I'm running around the block. I have a stitch in my side that's hurting. My lungs are on fire. I am exhausted. And I remember I'm like trying not to cry because it's that moment of, can I do this? Am I going to get kicked out? Like, I want to stop, but I can't let myself stop. And so I ended up finishing the run and I got back. Spoiler alert, nothing happened. Like, I wasn't kicked out. There was no, I don't even know if anyone even cared about my time by the time I got back. It had been forgotten. But in that experience, my body put running on the list of potential dangers of this is not safe. In fact, even when I was younger, I got diagnosed with athletic induced asthma. I was fine all the time. But as soon as I played sports, my chest restricted. But what was I doing? I was running. And so when we found this pattern in the nervous system, and I didn't remember this. This is what came through while we were doing the work because your nervous system will start giving you memories and flashes of what it's holding on to. So when I remembered this, it was like, oh my gosh, like I had forgotten about that. Like how silly. After that session, I shaved 2 minutes off my mile time because my body was no longer restricting me, trying to keep me from running. So
Yeah.
that was a really huge win for me.
Yeah. Yeah, this is such a cool story. And it also shows that it doesn't always have to be a huge, huge trauma that you experienced. But what was traumatic for you as a child, like it's from the child's perspective, like this still developing nervous system, right? And that experienced this whole situation is a big threat. Am I going to get kicked out of the group? Oh my God, my body's hurting. And then now you, as an adult, would be like, oh, that's nothing, baby. That's all right, right? But like as a child, you didn't think that way. Such a
Yeah.
so I think this is where I kind of fell into this, I don't know, trap maybe, to thinking that I've heard so many horrific stories from people, like really terrible trauma and abuse and all kinds of things. And I'm like, I have like little things, but I don't have something quite like it. So why do I have this stuff in my body? Why am I not feeling good? Why am I in pain? Why do I have insomnia? Like I don't have anything as big, but I think it's important to not compare, as you just showed, that something that now looks like pretty innocent can actually leave a mark in your nervous system.
Yes, absolutely. And the thing is that I've realized doing this work is we're all experiencing the full spectrum of emotions, and it's going to be saturated differently. But if I ask you, like, if you can identify what it feels like, the feeling of suffering in
Mhm.
your body can probably remember, like, oh, there was this time that was really, really hard, right?
Mhm.
Our interpretation of suffering is going to be different. There are different saturations, but that suffering is still suffering. Even though we can look at someone and go, whoa, I haven't experienced anything like that. But if we get down to the emotions that you've experienced, have you experienced those emotions? And have you experienced shock? Have there been moments that caught you off guard? And in that moment, you didn't know what to do.
Mhm.
So these are the things that the nervous system is programming itself around.
Yeah, totally. I also noticed after I did a session with you that I had that night more vivid dreams, and I think even the night after that, more stuff coming back. Very interesting things that I had never thought about, like kids from my school, I had never thought about. I'm not ever in contact anymore. This stuff, like little bits and pieces, started showing up, and I mean, I guess you can tell me what it was. Why did I have these dreams?
Yes, so that is your nervous system communicating with you what was tied to what was released. So
Mm.
when I work with someone, I always say, I can't tell you what you're going to find today or what your results are going to be, but I can tell you you will experience results, even if it's just I leave in a much calmer state. But every session, every person, the nervous system is releasing these areas of fight or flight and it's building back neurology. It's going to rewire itself for the next 3 nights when you're sleeping. And so that's why people for the next 3 nights can have very vivid dreams. And for the next 3 days, have memories that come up, or, they're, oh, I didn't think about that. And it really is, while the nervous system is rewiring itself, it's still giving you these pieces that it tied together to what you were experiencing.
Mhm.
And it can be surprising. One of the examples I give is I ended up with a really bad pollen allergy suddenly when I was a child, and it didn't make sense because my brother had horrible allergies. I never did. There was a huge fight in my home before we went to a work picnic for my dad. It was a horrible fight, and it was between myself and my parents. And then we went to this work picnic. My nervous system, I mean, I'm still in the car going, like still
Mhm.
trying to collect myself. And we get to this work picnic. Now, the work picnic ended up being a lot of fun, but there was a lot of pollen in the air that day. And so my body, because my nervous system was so triggered with this horrible fight, my nervous system put pollen on the list of potential dangers. Like it could have been the pollen that caused her to experience this. And so I woke up the next day for the first time ever. It was like my hands were swollen, huge, my eyes were swollen shut. And I remember being terrified because I'd never had an allergy before. And I had these horrible pollen allergies since. I luckily don't anymore. But it was because my nervous system put pollen on the list of potential threats because of this emotional experience that I had. The thing that makes it difficult is we're not consciously aware of how our nervous system is organizing these lists of potential threats.
Mhm.
So so that's why it's really cool when you experience what you did, where it is leaving you this trail going, hey, remember that? That was linked to this. Remember
Mhm.
that was linked to this.
Oh, so good. I actually want to come back to this with a personal question, but first I want to ask, can it ever happen in a session that something really big comes up and can really shake the person? Can it get like dangerous in some sense or no?
I have not come across that. The thing that I find is that our body holds so much wisdom, and it typically is, I shouldn't say typically, so far in my experience, it has always guided the way. And
Mhm.
so it's going to unfold things in a way that is safe for that person, and it's going to unfold it in an order that's okay for them. So
Yeah.
something that has surprised people is sometimes they'll come to me with these huge traumas. In fact, I'm working with a client now who came to me with all these huge traumas, but as we started working, it wanted to deal with these like little tiny things like, oh, I'm super annoyed at, like my stepdaughter right now. And she was kind of getting frustrated, like, but this isn't what I want to work on. And it's like, we have to trust the process of the body because the nervous system knows how you need to heal. It's not about my route. It's not about what
Mm.
I think. I mean, I would go in there with a backhoe and dig it up if I could,
Yeah.
but we're letting the nervous system unwind in a way that's safe. And so what she got to find through the experience of working together, her nervous system did take her to the big stuff, but her nervous system needed to start with the smaller stuff first. And so I always trust the body in the order that it is going to release things because the body holds the wisdom.
Yeah, and do you think then by the time you get to the big stuff, then your body's already more equipped to handle it, right? Because it comes in
There's,
stages and
yes,
layers, yeah. Yeah.
Yes, there's more. It's kind of like slowly walking into
Hmm.
slowly walking into the pool rather than just being thrown in the deep end and saying sink or swim.
Yeah.
And so, it really does. The person also will have more energy for their healing if we can give them more energy by handling the smaller things first. It also allows the nervous system to become more accustomed to me
Hmm.
so that the nervous system can learn that I am a safe person as well, because that's really important. But the thing that is really great is that when things do come up, we can work with it until the nervous system can let it go. And so I'm not ever going to leave someone in a place of like, oh, we just found something. Well, time's up. I'll see you later. And it has happened that I have had to, call clients and say, "I'm sorry, we're going to have to reschedule you. I'm still in session." And I have no problem doing that because it is about what's best for the person over time constraints.
Yeah, yeah. Yes. Now that you explained it, I actually remembered something that my coach said. So just like many other people, you said you need help sometimes. I need help sometimes, even though we help others. So I work with a coach too, and I asked her one time when she was teaching me how to do parts work, how to do the inner child work, when I was just getting familiar with these modalities, and so I told her, this work requires you to look deeper, look what's at the root. Is a memory popping up? And so I asked her, hey, I know that I have like a bigger traumas than the ones that are popping up currently. So, I mean, previously I told you today that I don't have like a huge traumas, but perhaps the biggest one that I know of is seeing my parents in a physical fight. So this was really hard, and I was super little, and I remember a little bit of it, but it's not like I didn't have like a big like emotional feeling, right? So my coach then said, there's no doubt that this is impacting your nervous system. It's just that your nervous system is not ready yet to look at that. So it's working on the more closer to the surface things for time being.
Yeah.
And then when it feels safe, then you will get there. But by the time you get there, you are better equipped. Your nervous system can handle things better. You have more techniques for grounding yourself. And so I feel like this is kind of what you said too. So it's good to hear it, from different people. Same thing.
Yes. And it's when you were saying that, I was thinking about like, oh, and yes, because that's why for me, I went from trying therapy so many times, and
Yeah.
every time it was re-traumatizing because my nervous system could not speak about these things. And that energy was still in my body for my nervous system to react to. It was the same thing over and over again. Once I was able to release that trauma and my nervous system stopped responding to it, then I was able to put a voice to things. Then I was able to speak about it and it didn't have the charge. It wasn't upsetting. It was more of like, oh yes, this is something that happened, but it was very neutral. Because I used to go, I'm so broken, not even therapy can help me.
Right. Like
And
more broken than anybody else because everybody else got better and just me. I'm the only one.
nobody can experience is experiencing this but me. Yes.
Yeah.
And so there can sometimes there is this order of operations of like it doesn't necessarily mean therapy is never for you, but
Mhm.
it's maybe the body is saying, hey, like we got to offload some things first in a different way before we start trying to talk about it.
Hmm. I think if you've never talked about it before, then it can have, in that sense, like a cleansing effect. I got it off my chest. But then
Mhm.
what happens afterwards? It's still in our neurology. Just verbally
Mhm.
saying things out loud probably didn't heal what's deep inside in the nervous system.
I would say that's what I hear the most from people when I work with them is they're like, I've been in therapy for 10 years. Like, I've understood my problems. I understood why I act this way. I understood what it's rooted in.
Hmm.
But they're like, that understanding didn't change the behaviors. It didn't change, and it's because it didn't change the nervous system. And we can know, like, oh, I get it. It's because my mom said this to me, or this happened when I was younger. And as much as we love that understanding, I mean, I love it too. I love to understand, 2 + 2 = 4. Where did this come from?
Hmm.
But in understanding it, it doesn't shift what the nervous system is doing. Understanding what Microsoft Word does doesn't change what Microsoft Word does. And we're
Hmm.
the same way.
Hmm. Yes. And have you also seen that then as a result of thinking, I'm especially broken because my therapist couldn't fix me, I am somehow incapable, not good enough, essentially. Like, how come I cannot do this? I have a friend right
Yes.
now who is going through a lot of depression, and then she had to take some time off from work. And she said, okay, I really have to get my thinking together now and have to like reframe everything. And I was like, yes, if you find it helpful. But you have tried it, haven't you? Like every time it's like, I have to get my thinking together. I have to think better. I have to be more positive. I have to reframe. And then it's like she's almost blaming herself for not succeeding at this. Like that now this is my fault that I'm not able to do this. Therapist told me to do this, but I'm not doing this. So, you know, but and big disclaimer here, I am not a therapist, but that's the impression that I get is like you can't heal old wounds on just like the level of your cognitive thinking. It's here.
Yes.
It's in the body.
So here's one of the most fascinating things is that we all know that our mind and our bodies are working together, but we don't really understand the gravity of how much, and
Mhm.
that what is in the psyche has affected the body and what's in the body is affecting the psyche. So when the body is holding on to trauma or shock from the past, there is an unsettle, there's these disruptions in our energy, this disruption in our body. And even if we're not consciously aware of it. But what is a good indicator is the quality of our thinking. And when our thinking of ourselves or of life, when we get stuck in these negative patterns, typically we try to go at it of like, I'm not going to think this way anymore, but then we come back around to it. And it's because we're actually targeting it backwards. The mind is always narrating what is happening in the body. So if I'm holding a lot of trauma in the body or shocks or energetic blocks in the body, the mind is going to keep coming up with stories to narrate what I'm holding in the body, even if I'm unaware of it. And so rather than try to change the mind, because the mind's going to keep narrating the body. It's think of the mind as the voice for the body, but it's not necessarily getting the story right. It's just going, oh, there's pain. So it's like, oh, this is probably going to happen and this is probably wrong and this is and it's being neurotic. And so rather than target the neurotic mind, we target the body and go, what is the body holding? And
Mhm.
how do we shift the nervous system around it? And if we target that, then the mind follows and the mind starts telling a different story. And an example of this is going to be I don't know if you've ever healed something that when you were in it and it was a charge in your body, it's like every time you told the story, it got just like a little bit juicier, just a
Yes.
little bit more dramatic. And, you got it down a little better. And it kind of grew. Even if you didn't realize it at the time, the story kind of grew. And as the story grew, the intensity would grow. And it would be like, yes, I'm so right about this. I feel it on every level. Well, when we can do nervous system work around it and we can release that charge, suddenly the story, and I am speaking from my own experience. I mean, I have plenty of stories like this, stories that I would tell with so much passion of like, and then this happened, and then he did this to me. And then suddenly, when I release it from the body and I tell the story, when people come back and are like, "Oh yeah, remember when he did this to you?" And I actually kind of cringe and I'm all, ugh, like, yikes, I really sold that. And I'm all, yeah, it's fine though. It's fine.
Mhm.
And it's just because it doesn't resonate with my body the same way. Where before it was so all consuming, the same story is now like, oh, that's not my story anymore. I know I said that, but that's gone. And so that's the change, like the powerful changes that happen.
Yes, I'm so glad you talked about it because I actually wanted to ask you about this, but I forgot. I had it in mind because I was just going to ask you, like, even with, let's say, with some childhood events that really hurt you at the time, and now you think back to them and like, yes, this thing really happened to me. It was really painful. You feel the pain. It makes you cry. It's like, yes, of course, it is hard to go through this again. But when you do this work, like anything that helps your nervous system heal, then there will be a moment where the story doesn't sound or feel that terrifying anymore. It's like, yes, this is what happened. And yep, like can't deny that fact. And it doesn't direct my life anymore. I'm not going down those spirals because of that thing. And that's a
Yeah.
really cool thing to realize. Oh, I'm like you said, you don't have that extra charge anymore. Like, it's like, yeah, it's one of the things that happened.
Yes. And
Hmm.
that's even when they look at how we store memories, they find that over time, the further we get away from the event, I think they said, and I'm terrible with remembering numbers, so I shouldn't even quote, but I think they said like it's like more than 50% of our memories are creative. And it doesn't mean it's creative as like we intentionally began lying to ourselves, but it's creative in the sense that because the mind narrates the charge in the body, that as we feel the charge in the body, and especially as more events like that, let's say, happen and that charge grows bigger, the mind will naturally get creative and remember things that didn't happen because it's narrating what it believes matches the charge that the body is feeling. And so
Hmm.
it's like we neutralize that charge, and then suddenly, like things that like I said, I used to say about my past, and now it's just like, oh yeah. And
Hmm.
there's no need to even elaborate because there's no charge there. So there's no desire for my mind to keep going on and on. It's just like, ah, yeah, that's fine. Like, yeah,
Hmm.
it was just something that happened. Yeah, it was just another bus stop.
So, you work with people in person, but also online, is that right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what does an online session look like? Because in person, you use the ball, there's a lot of physical movement, like interaction like that. What does it look like in Zoom?
Yeah, so on Zoom, I will have someone get a ball. What's funny is if people can't, I've literally had people use a flip-flop. I had someone use a toilet paper roll. Like, as long as you can get two hands on it, I can
Mhm.
help you through nervous system work. What I do through a session is I'm watching the neurology. And so, as I'm walking people through movements, I'm watching the neurology, and the neurology is telling me where they need to stop, where they need to go, where they need to breathe. And so I'm able to do the same thing as in person and walk them through a release just over video.
Hmm. Okay. So how can people then book a session with you? How does that work?
Yeah, so I would say the easiest way right now would be to find me on Instagram. I'm at My Life Lucid. And if you go to my link in there, you will find where to schedule an appointment
Hmm.
to work with me one-on-one. Or I do have a women's group right now that I'm super excited about. It's a monthly membership. There's no commitment, no hidden fees or weird contracts. And people can start and stop whenever they want, no strings attached. Every week, I do get on a Zoom with women from all over and walk them through 1 hour of nervous system work, and they can ask me questions, and we can focus on whatever the group wants to focus on that day. And then I also show up throughout the week and teach this nervous system work to people and give them little mini sessions that they can utilize to start their day, little tools and tricks to where if they find themselves, their nervous system is elevated and they need a way to come back down. It's all the tips and tricks to help them out of that.
Hmm. Very cool. And so this information is also in your Instagram bio. Is that right?
Yes, and that's in my bio in the link.
Okay, cool. So everybody can go and check out the YouTube description and Spotify description. I'm gonna put all these links there so you can find Caitlin. You are also an athlete. Like you said before, you've always been active, right?
Yes.
Yes. Almost all of the guests that are here that talk to me on this podcast are active or they have some kind of relationship with fitness. So I would like to finish our chat today with some rapid fire questions. And some of the questions have something to do with fitness and food. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, Caitlin. What is your favorite way of working out?
Either long runs in the mountains with my husband or pickleball.
Oh, pickleball too. Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, tell me, you are in Phoenix, Arizona, just like myself. How do you run in summertime when it's sometimes 120, especially the part of the city where you are? It's hotter there than here.
It's hot real early in the morning. So in the summertime, it's not uncommon for me to go running at 4:30 in the morning.
Oh gosh, what time do you go to bed?
I go to bed. If I'm getting up at 4:30, I'll go to bed at probably 7:30. I really prioritize sleep, and my kids know mom goes to bed early and they better have their butts in bed at bedtime, and they're really good and they do.
Awesome. Okay, so what is the type of workout or an individual exercise that you don't love at all, but you do it anyway because you know it's good for you?
I would also say running. I
Oh yeah.
hated running my whole life. I loved every other sport, every other activity, and I got into running. I felt like I needed to stick with it because I hated it so much, and it became like the greatest thing, but I also feel like I still hate it more than any other sport.
Oh gosh. It's funny considering how often I see on social media you going running. So I'm like, you really hate it?
It's the best medicine, but it's one of those things of it's like the thought of it is always like, oh, I gotta go do this. But after, I'm always, and even when I run in the mountains, I'm like, ah, this is why I'm here.
Yeah,
So it is that there is that duality within running for me.
yeah, for sure. What is your favorite not everyday food or a treat?
My favorite treat, like, are we
Hmm.
talking if I'm being naughty? Okay, and it's so funny because I'm very health conscious, and here is my other duality. I love a Coca-Cola.
Oh
I
yeah.
love a Coca-Cola.
Hmm. Okay. Do you drink the regular or the diet? Which one?
Regular,
Regular,
regular.
the real
I
deal.
have no interest in any other soda or any other type of Coke except the original.
Cool. That's an interesting one. I don't think anybody's ever said it. It's always like chocolate or burger or something like that. But yours is Coca-Cola.
Coke.
Okay, what is your favorite way to spend a Saturday night?
Oh, really just cuddled up with my family on the
Mm.
couch, laughing, playing a game, just spending that quality time together. And as I said, we go to bed early. So as much as people hear me and they're like, "You sound fun," I'm like, "Oh, I would disappoint you in real life. I'm a grandma. I go to bed so early."
Yeah. Okay, so the next one is what is your biggest pet peeve?
Oh, biggest pet peeve, I think, is when including for myself, when we defend our own limitations. That's my biggest pet peeve. When we defend why we should be limiting ourselves and we're just in limiting ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a big one because it's comfortable, right? It's nice to justify it, then I don't have to do the hard thing.
Yes, and I'm
Yep.
fortunate. My husband, I let him know, like, you call me out, and he does. So as soon as I start limiting myself and going like, well, and it's because
Hmm.
he's like, oh, you're defending those limitations, and it's
Right.
all right.
Yeah. What brings you the most joy?
Connecting with people, connecting with people, for
Mm,
sure. That's where
nice.
the richness is.
So important. All right, we have two more. It's something you thought you could never do, but you did it anyway.
Run an ultra.
Oh, awesome. How long was it?
32 miles.
32 miles. Okay.
So
What is it in
I've done
kilometers?
three
Yeah.
now.
Mm, awesome. I'm wondering what it is in kilometers. My brain is still sometimes operating better with kilometers than it is
It's
miles.
something like a
Uh,
52K, somewhere around
yes.
there.
51.4. Just checked it. 51.5. Woo, that's a long one. Was it on a trail, I'm assuming, or paved, or what was it
Yeah.
like?
Yeah. So even though I train on pavement a lot because it's right outside,
Mm-hmm.
all my races, I did one road race, and besides that, I do trails. I love being out in nature. That's where the medicine is for me.
Mm-hmm. How long did it take you to run your fastest ultra?
So I've been running 2.5 years now, and I just completed my fastest ultra at the end of February, and I am still not fast. So anyone hearing this, if you think you have to be fast or talented to run, I am here to show you you don't. You can run slow with me, but I did complete that ultra. My goal was in under 7 hours, and I
Mhm.
did it.
Oh, sweet. That's really good. You probably walked a little bit there too, right? It's not the whole time running, or
This one I ran the whole
you
time.
did.
It was my first ultra not walking at all.
Nice. That's really cool. I've done four full marathons in my life, and it was only one of them where I walked, and it's so hard to pick up running again once you have started walking. And so I always try to commit to run the whole way through as much as you can.
My last ultra, I was ready to sprint in my last couple miles and I was so ready for it and I knew I needed calories, so I stopped at the last aid station to fill my pack with liquid calories to drink. And I knew I needed it, but I regretted it
Mm.
because when I went to run again, my whole right side locked up and it was
Oh,
like I was like, why did I stop? I could have just run those last few miles and I still made it in. But to your point, 1000%.
yep, yep. All right, our final question today. What is your number one bucket list item?
To travel the world with my family. I want my kids to see different cultures, different people, different experiences, and I want them to see the beauty of this earth.
Mm. What is your favorite place you've been thus far?
Oh man, that's hard. So right now I'm really into mountains. I would say I love the mountains in Colorado. As far as world traveling, I haven't done it since I was in high school. And I went to Germany for a little bit and I went to France for a little bit, and both of those were amazing, but I don't have more to speak of than that. So I'm ready to try it all out.
Nice. All right. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Caitlin. Let me know, is there anything that you would like to add that I maybe didn't ask you yet?
The only thing is, I want everyone listening to know that you were made to heal. And it doesn't matter if you just got the most devastating diagnosis you could think of, or if you just believe that there's something fundamentally flawed with you. I promise you, you were made to heal. You were made to heal. You were made to heal. And
Mm,
just start thinking in terms of what is possible for me.
right. No, that's so beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for today's chat, and I hope to see you soon. Take care.
Thank you.